The Miles M.35 Libellula was a tandem-wing research aircraft, built by Miles Aircraft as a precursor to a proposed naval carrier fighter. It was named after the libellula, a genus of dragonflies. Carrier aircraft are at a disadvantage compared to land-based equivalents because they require wing-folding systems, increasing the aircraft's weight at the expense of payload. Adaptations of single-engine tail-dragger land-based aircraft typically had poor visibility. During landing, 1941, Miles became aware of the high accident rates for carrier landings. They began private venture work on unorthodox configurations, potentially solving the visibility problem and the complications of folding wings required for storage of ship-borne aircraft. Miles realized a tandem wing fighter could be built to fit onto carrier elevators without folding. In addition, the pilot could be seated in the nose for an excellent view during landings. To Miles, the tandem wing configuration appeared to be the answer provided it was aerodynamically feasible. Advantages of a tandem-winged carrier fighter include small size, maneuverability, excellent visibility, reduced weight, and reduced drag. Avoiding the bureaucratic process of submitting an unorthodox design for official consideration, Miles built and flew a mock-up. Miles tasked Ray Borman with designing a small single-engined, single-seat aircraft, the Miles M.35. Without the interference of bureaucrats, design and construction was completed in 6 weeks. The result was a small wooden aircraft with a high-set front wing and low-set rear wing, fixed tricycle, undercarriage, and pusher propeller, with the engine in the rear of the fuselage and the pilot sitting in the front of the fuselage. Flight trials of the M.35 were to commence in 1942, but Miles' chief test pilot was reluctant to take off in the aircraft, whereupon George Miles took over. The M.35 proved to be reluctant to take off. Eventually, Miles discovered if the throttle was closed sharply at speed, the little aircraft leapt into the air. The initial flight on the 1st of May 1942 was not a success, with the aircraft almost uncontrollable due to an incorrect center of gravity. Miles completed this flight successfully. Later flights were more successful, after ballasting the aircraft correctly, proving the tandem wing layout could be useful as a naval fighter. Further flying was carried out in support of Miles' other tandem wing projects. Miles immediately submitted a proposal for a naval fighter, based on the arrangement called Libellula, to the Admiralty and the Ministry of Aircraft Product, building the M.35 without official authority. The company was castigated by the Ministry of Aircraft Production, which, along with the Admiralty, rejected the proposed fighter. Miles were encouraged by the results from the M.35. They drew a bomber design on the same principles. This was submitted to the bureaucracy in July 1940 to meet the requirements of Specification B 1141. Miles immediately started work on a scale version, the M.39B. The M.39B Libellula was a Second World War tandem-wing experimental aircraft built by Miles Aircraft, designed to give the pilot the best view possible for landing on aircraft carriers. A scale version of the M.39 design was proposed by Miles to meet Air Ministry Specification B 1141 for a fast bomber. The M.39B was used by Miles to generate data, from which the M.39 design was improved, but the M.39 project was cancelled and the M.39B broken up, though it had some problems. The earlier M.35 proved sufficient to show the idea had merits, and the larger M.39 was drawn up as a twin-engine design prepared to meet Specification B 1141, which had been issued by the Air Ministry for a high-speed bomber. The specification had been written for the P1005 proposal by Hawker, powered by two Napier Sabre engines, estimated to achieve 400 miles per hour at 25,000 feet and deliver a 2,000 pounds bomb load over 1,600 miles. The P-1005 was cancelled after several delays on behalf of the Air Ministry, and before Miles submitted his design to the ministry in July. In November 1943, a full-size prototype to use the serial RR910 was ordered, but not built, until the intended 3 power jets. W2 500 turbojets were available. The M39 would have had to Rolls-Royce Merlin 60 inline, or Bristol Hercules 8 radial piston engines. The M39 would have a crew of 3 in a pressurized cabin, as well as the bomb bay amidships. The M39 was intended to carry to fixed 20mm cannons in the roots of the forward wings. To prove the concept, Miles designed and built a 5/8 scale version, the M39B, which flew on the 22nd of July 1943, showing no undesirable handling characteristics. It coincided with interest by the authorities in unorthodox designs for large aircraft. The rear wing was mounted higher than the forward one to avoid downwash and give ground clearance for the propellers. The M39 design had inboard flaps and outboard ailerons on the rear wing, and the front wing had an auxiliary airfoil flapper elevator device, which could vary the wing area without changing lift coefficient. The Ministry of Aircraft Production agreed a development contract and purchase of the M39B. Miles continued testing, generating more flight data, and submitted an improved M39 design in early 1944. Meanwhile, the sole M39B passed to the Royal Aircraft Establishment at Farnborough in 1944, where it carried the serial SR392, being damaged and repaired after 2 accidents, only to be broken up with the full-sized bomber project's cancellation. That's all for today. Until next time, goodbye.